Why is the new girl staring at you? I looked up, and a girl I'd never seen before was standing in the cafeteria doorway, looking directly at me. She smiled and walked straight to our table. I'm Piper. I just transferred. I love your shoes. She sat down before I could answer, and suddenly she was everywhere I was. She asked me questions like she was filling out a form, and I told her all of it, and it felt good, like being seen for the first time. I told her Jess was my best friend, and I played setter on volleyball, and I'd been in love with Danny Moreno since freshman year. I showed her a photo on my phone of me and my dad at my last game, and she stared at it for a long second before saying, "You're really lucky. Not everyone gets that." She was already asking about my classes before I could respond. She brought me a volleyball cupcake, texted Jess calling me the coolest person she'd ever met, and showed up at my volleyball game and sat in the stands 3 rows behind my dad. After the game, she found me in the parking lot and said, "Your dad was cheering louder than anyone. That must feel amazing." She brought me a smoothie the next morning, and it was my exact order from the cafe near my house. I hadn't told her my coffee order. Jess was standing right there and said, "How did you know she gets that?" Piper laughed and said, "Lucky guess." And Jess looked at me for a second, like that was weird, but we both let it go. I walked up to Jess at her locker, and Piper was already there, and they were laughing at something, and when they saw me, they both stopped. "What's so funny?" "Nothing," Jess said. "You had to be there." Something small and sharp twisted in my chest because Jess had never once shut me out of a joke. Jess started canceling our plans, and I'd scroll through their stories watching them pose together in captions I wasn't tagged in, and each one stung worse than the last. Then Piper tried out for volleyball and played setter like she'd been training for my position for months. The coach pulled me aside. "Piper is more dynamic in the setter position." I felt like the floor had been pulled out from under me. Piper hugged me in the hallway afterward. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I had no idea that was your spot." I stood there with her arms around me, feeling sick to my stomach, and said, "It's fine, because what else do you say when someone hugs you while they're taking something from you?" I walked into a party wearing my green top that I'd told Piper about, and my stomach dropped to the floor. Piper was on the couch next to Danny wearing my exact shirt. Same brand, same color, same cut. She was leaning into him, and he was looking at her the way I'd spent 2 years waiting for him to look at me. Something inside my chest closed like a fist, and I stood against the wall all night holding a cup I never drank from. Danny came over to get a drink, and I asked how he and Piper started talking. He shrugged and said, "She just knew stuff about me. Like she knew I was into cars and that I want to go to state and that my dog just died. I don't even know how she knew about the dog. I knew exactly how, because I told her all of it." My phone buzzed in second period with a screenshot from a girl on the volleyball team. "Did you actually send this?" A text from my number calling the entire team talentless. I stared at it, and my blood ran cold. I had never written those words. Then Jess's name with a screenshot calling her desperate. Danny's name with a text saying I only liked him because I felt sorry for him. My phone kept buzzing, and each notification felt like a punch because by the time I could start explaining, the entire school had already seen every screenshot. I found Piper between classes and grabbed her arm. "I know you did this." Her face transformed in half a second. Her eyes filled with tears, and she turned to the hallway and said in a shaking voice, "I thought we were friends. What did I ever do to you?" A girl shoved herself between us, and someone behind me pulled out their phone and started recording. I stood there with my hand in the air, watching Piper walk away, sobbing into Jess's shoulder while the hallway stared at me. I have never felt more humiliated in my life. I scrolled through my feed, and every other post was a screenshot of my face with captions like, "Imagine bullying the new girl." And someone had turned me into a meme, and my hands were shaking so hard I dropped my phone. Jess called me and didn't say hello. I can't be friends with someone this toxic. She is stealing my life, Jess. She asked me every detail about myself, and then she took every item on it. Nobody is stealing anything. Piper is just better at things than you. She's a better volleyball player, she's a better friend, and Danny likes her more than he ever liked you. That's not theft, that's life. Don't call me again. I sat on my bed after she hung up, and I felt like someone had reached inside my chest and ripped something out. Every friend I'd had since middle school stopped talking to me. Girls I'd known since 5th grade looked at their phones when I walked past. My lab partner asked the teacher to switch groups. I had never felt so alone in a room full of people in my entire life. A girl from my math class stopped me in the hall and said, "This is probably nothing, but Piper asked me about you on her first day. Like before she even talked to you. She wanted to know who your friends were and where you sat at lunch." I stared at her. Before we met? Yeah. I figured she was just trying to figure out the school, but now with all this stuff happening, I thought you should know. She walked away before anyone saw her talking to me. Piper started dating Danny and posted a photo of them holding hands with a caption about finding her person, and my stomach turned because I could see my locker in the background. I saw them at his car after school, and Piper opened her eyes in the middle of kissing him and looked directly at me over his shoulder and winked. My whole body went hot and then cold because that wink told me everything. She told the coach I'd been bullying her, and the coach pulled me aside. I'm benching you until this gets resolved. She's lying. Multiple girls confirmed it. I sat on the bench for 3 games watching Piper play my position. At the last one, she made a save that brought the gym to its feet, and Danny jumped up screaming, and Jess was next to him wearing a shirt that said Piper in marker, and my dad was in his usual spot in the stands clapping for a girl he barely knew, while his actual daughter sat on the bench in a uniform she wasn't allowed to use, and I had to dig my nails into my palms to keep from crying. Then Piper started coming to my house. She told Danny my parents had invited her to dinner and they were too polite to say she hadn't been invited, so my mom set an extra plate. She sat at our kitchen table and complimented my mom's cooking and asked my dad about his job and laughed at his jokes, and he said, "Why can't you bring around friends like this more often?" I sat across from her watching my own father beam at the girl who was destroying my life, and I felt something dark and heavy settle in my stomach. She came back twice more. She brought flowers for my mom. The second time, she walked straight to the bathroom without asking where it was. My mom looked at me. I looked at my mom. Neither of us said anything. She asked to see old photo albums, and I didn't know how to say no without looking crazy. So my mom pulled them out, and Piper sat on the couch flipping through pages of my childhood with an expression I couldn't read. She stopped on a photo of me at age 3 sitting on my dad's shoulders at the beach, and her fingers pressed into the page, and she stared at it for so long, the room got quiet. "Must be nice," she said, "growing up like this." She said it with a smile, but her eyes were flat and cold, and something about the way she was looking at my father in that photo made the hair on my arms stand up. After she left, I found my mom cleaning up the kitchen and said, "Is it weird that she's always asking about Dad? Like she laughs at everything he says and keeps finding excuses to sit next to him." My mom dried a plate without looking at me. "She's just being friendly." "It doesn't feel friendly. It feels like she's into him. She's 16. I know. That's what makes it creepy." I stayed up writing a post with IP addresses proving the fake texts didn't come from my phone. Piper posted a video of herself crying about harassment, and my post vanished under a wall of hearts, and I sat on my bedroom floor and felt something inside me go quiet because proof didn't matter. The principal called me in and gave me a formal warning for cyberbullying, and I walked out shaking with anger because the one adult who was supposed to protect me had just told me my evidence was irrelevant. I was eating lunch alone in the library when I noticed Piper's Instagram only went back 4 months. I traced an email from one of her comments to a second account with no profile picture and one following, which was mine. I opened it and my hands went cold. The account had been following me for 4 years, with every photo I'd ever posted saved. But the folder with the most screenshots wasn't my friends or my parties. It was every photo I'd ever posted of my dad. My dad in the stands at games. My dad helping me with my serve. My dad and me at Christmas. Dozens of photos of a man she had never met. My skin was crawling because I had been right about her and my dad, and this was so much worse than I thought. She hadn't just been flirting with him at dinner, she had been obsessed with him for 4 years. I showed Jess the account, and she looked at my phone for 5 seconds. "You made a fake account to frame her." I showed Danny, and he pushed my hand away. "Piper told me you'd do exactly this." He walked away, and I felt something crack inside me because she had told every person exactly what I was going to do before I did it. Becca from English found me in the library. "I don't think you sent those texts. The language didn't sound like you." "I didn't send them. She faked all of it. I believe you, but she's telling everyone that anyone who talks to you is next. I just can't." She left, and I felt the last flame of hope go out because even the one person who believed me was too scared to help. Piper bumped me in the hallway, and while picking up my books, she whispered, "Nobody is ever going to believe you. I took your friends, your team, your crush, your reputation, and you have no idea what I'm actually here for. You have no idea what you have that should have been mine." She squeezed my arm and walked away. I stood there holding my books, and I felt completely empty because she was right, and nobody was ever going to believe me. I went home and cried until my face was so swollen I could barely see. My mom knocked and wouldn't leave until I opened the door. I told her everything from the first day to the burner account to the folder of photos of Dad. Mom, I think she's obsessed with him, like actually obsessed. She has 4 years of his photos saved. She sat very still and listened to every word. What's this girl's last name? Lane. Piper Lane. The color drained out of my mom's face. Her hands tightened on the edge of my mattress, and she stared at the wall behind me, and a cold feeling spread through my chest because my mother's face had just told me that whatever was happening with Piper was bigger than high school. Mom, do you know her? I'll talk to the school. Her voice went flat like she was choosing every word. Mom, what is wrong? Try to get some sleep. She left my room, and I pressed my ear to the door and heard her on the phone speaking too quietly for me to make out a single word. I came home from the library, and the front the library, and the front door was unlocked. My mom always locked it. I pushed it open, and a chemical smell hit me so hard my eyes started watering and my throat clenched shut, and I could smell gasoline everywhere. I pulled my shirt over my nose, and my heart was hammering because gasoline in a house means one thing. The carpet was dark and wet. The couch cushions were soaked through. The curtains were dripping. Piper was standing in the middle of the living room, holding a lighter in her right hand and staring at our family photos on the wall with a face I had never seen on her before, completely still. No tears, no performance, no audience to play to. What are you doing? She flicked the lighter open, and a small flame appeared, and the fumes in the room felt thick enough to chew. Ask your dad about Karen. What? Ask him about Karen Lane. Ask him about the daughter he left in a studio apartment with a mother who couldn't keep the lights on while he came home every night to this. She swept the lighter across the room at the photos and the furniture. I don't know what you're talking about. He had a whole other family before your mom. He had my mom, and he had me. And when your mom got pregnant, he decided he liked that version better, so he packed a bag and walked out our front door and never came back. I was 3 years old. He used to read me bedtime stories. He used to call me his little bird. And one day the door closed and he just never walked through it again. I didn't know. My voice came out barely above a whisper because the floor felt like it was tilting under me. She wasn't obsessed with my dad the way I thought. She wasn't trying to seduce him. She was his daughter. The dinner visits, the photo album, the way she pressed her fingers into that picture at the beach, the burner account full of his photos. She hadn't been stalking a stranger. She had been watching her own father raise someone else. I know you didn't know. You didn't know I existed, and I spent my entire childhood watching you exist online. Your birthday parties and your volleyball games and your dad in the stands cheering for the daughter he chose. I sat at your kitchen table and watched him laugh and tell stories, and he didn't even recognize me. His own daughter was sitting 3 feet away from him eating his wife's cooking, and he looked right through me like I was nobody. I watched you get a car on your 16th birthday while my mom worked double shifts and I ate cereal for dinner. I watched you complain about your parents being annoying, and I wanted to reach through the screen and scream because at least you had them, both of them, in the same house, loving you. The fumes were making my eyes stream and my throat close. I edged sideways toward the front door, and Piper stepped to cut me off with the lighter flame dancing between us. So, you came here to take everything from me because my dad left you. He gave you everything, and he gave me nothing, and nobody was ever going to make that fair. So I made it fair myself. I took your friends. I took your spot on the team. I took the boy you loved. I took your reputation. I sat at your dinner table and made your dad like me more in 3 visits than he liked me in 13 years of being his actual daughter. I took everything you told me about your life, and I used it like a checklist, and now I'm going to take this house too. And then what? You burn it down and go to prison, and you still don't have a dad. At least you won't have one either. She threw the lighter. I watched it arc through the air toward the soaked carpet, and pure terror shot through me, and I launched myself at her before it landed, and we crashed into the gasoline-soaked floor together. The lighter bounced off the hardwood and skidded across the room and hit the baseboard, and the flame flickered and went out. Piper was screaming and clawing at my face, and I got on top of her and pinned her arms against the floor while gasoline soaked through my shirt and jeans. She ripped a hand free and dragged her nails across my cheek hard enough that I felt skin tear, and I grabbed her wrist and slammed it back down. Let go of me! He left us! He left us! And you got everything! I dragged her across the floor toward the front door because even after everything she had done, I was not leaving her in a house full of gasoline. She fought me every inch of the way, kicking and biting and screaming, and I got the door open and pulled her through it, and we crashed off the porch onto the lawn. I pinned her down in the wet grass and held her there while she sobbed so hard her whole body convulsed under me. Porch lights came on up and down the street, and a neighbor ran toward us with a phone pressed to her ear. My dad's car pulled into the driveway. The headlights swept across the lawn and lit up the two of us on the grass, covered in gasoline. He got out slowly and looked at me, and then looked at Piper, and his whole body went stiff. "Who's Karen?" His face collapsed, and it wasn't confusion, and it wasn't surprise. It was guilt. And looking at that guilt on his face, I felt a rage build inside me that was bigger than anything Piper had ever made me feel, because my dad had known about this girl my entire life, and he had never said a word. I can explain. Can you explain why a girl I've never met showed up at my school and destroyed my entire life because you left her when she was 3? It's complicated. It's not complicated. You had a daughter and you left her, and she spent her whole childhood watching me online because you gave me everything you were supposed to give her. Every birthday, every volleyball game, every Christmas morning she spent alone eating cereal while we opened presents. That was you. She sat at our dinner table, and you told her she was the kind of friend I should have, and you didn't even recognize your own child. And then she showed up at my school and took everything I had because she thought it should have been hers. And honestly, she's not wrong. Piper was on the ground, sobbing so hard her whole body was shaking and her face was pressed into the grass. My dad looked down at her, and his mouth opened and closed and his eyes went wet, and watching him look at her like that made my chest ache because he was seeing his daughter for the first time in 13 years, and it had taken a gasoline fire to make it happen. The cops came, and 2 officers walked across the lawn and pulled Piper up off the grass and put her in handcuffs, and she screamed the whole way to the car, and I stood there watching, and I didn't feel relief or satisfaction or anything close to it. I just felt tired. My dad stood in the driveway with his arms hanging at his sides and didn't say a single word. The firefighters told us the whole first floor would have gone up in seconds if that lighter had landed on the carpet instead of the hardwood. My mom pulled in behind the fire truck and saw the firefighters and the cops and my dad standing alone by his car, and she looked at him and he looked at her, and neither of them said a word. "How long have you known?" I asked her. She closed her eyes. "Since before you were born, and you never told me. I thought he made his choice, and it was done." "She's 16, Mom. She grew up eating cereal for dinner while we had family movie night. It was never done." She pulled me into a hug and held on tight, and I could feel her whole body shaking against mine. I visited Piper at a juvenile facility on the other side of town. She was sitting across a metal table in a gray sweatshirt with her hair pulled back and no makeup, and she looked like a completely different person. Smaller and younger, without the armor she'd built around herself. Looking at her sitting there, I didn't feel the anger I expected to feel. I felt sad for both of us. "I'm not here to forgive you," I said. "I'm here because nobody from the family that got everything has ever said this to you, and someone should. You deserved better than what he did to you. You deserved a dad who stayed." She sat there looking at me with red eyes, and she didn't say a word, but she didn't look away.